can put lotion on him. Oh, look how supple they are. All right, Stochastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on a Friday evening because I am promoted to the big show. Greg Ehrenberg is off hanging out with his family. His sister is graduating college, so they are out somewhere in the Midwest enjoying things. But I am joined by Matt Belman, and we do shows together all weekend. So the pairing is the same, but the day is different. Mr. Belman, how are you doing here? I get to be on the flagship show now on a weekday.
Yeah, given huge weekend vibes here. Me and you together. We're together on a couple shows tomorrow. Look forward to that. And yeah, Greg is in my neck of the woods, actually. He's at Ohio State where his sister is graduating. I'm in Cleveland, so a couple hours away, but hopefully Ohio shows him a good time.
Very nice. Very nice. My wife actually grew up until like second or third grade in Ohio. So ties there. She was out in Chillicothe in that area.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Very familiar.
Small town, but we went and visited a couple times, and then we've gone there a few times to see friends in Columbus and other places. But yeah, that's Ohio. I had never been to Ohio until I met her. It's just one of the states I never needed to go to, but there we are. All right, we've got about 200 people watching. We have a very, very fun slate today because it's Friday. There's always exciting things. Yesterday was an early slate, kind of not very exciting. I think one starting pitcher got the win, Nate Eovaldi. Otherwise, it was relievers. There were a couple games that went into extra innings. We also have NBA Live before lock after us. There's a 2-game slate. Double elimination is on the table. There is a chance that the Dallas Mavericks could clinch and send the Cleveland Cavaliers home. And then there is a chance that, sending the Clippers home. And then Cleveland Cavaliers could clinch in Orlando. They're 3.5-point favorites. So that's going to be some fun basketball to watch. You will get Lindquist and Josh Engelman after us, the usual Friday Live Before Lock crew. But let's come in here. We're going to do what the standard format has become. We'll talk a little bit about pitching. Once we get towards the crappier pitchers, we'll switch over there to stacks. We'll, of course, talk home run hits, maybe some wagers. First things first, the weather. There is on the earlier slate. So there's a slate for 6-10 games for Cincinnati. There's a chance of rain. That rain is going to leave. It shouldn't be an issue throughout the night. So if you're playing one of the all day or one of the earlier slates, you should be okay there. Similarly, Pittsburgh. There's a chance that one could actually get a delay or potentially postponement. Delay more likely. That could take Martin Perez out as an SP2. Again, that's on the earlier slate. And then Cleveland. That is the only real weather impact that we have for the featured slate. And that looks like it should not be too much of a troubled, some scattered showers, but I don't think it will be anything that will impact the game too dramatically. But we're going to talk about Tanner Bibee a little bit because after the tippy top here, we run out of pitching here, so it gets a little dicey, just a little dicey here. So what do you have for us today? Who's your top pitcher, good sir? I will turn the mic over to you here.
I think the top pitcher is pretty clear. It is a really, really deep pitching slate. Lofty and I talked about that this morning. Bunch of guys in the 8 to 9K range that look really good, loaded today in that range. That said, Sonny Gray is still the top guy. 23.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Ownership is right in line, 28% ownership. He's expensive, but that's just really relative because he's more expensive than every other pitcher on the slate. But he's not expensive in the sense that it's hard to fit him. I don't think he's a must play or anything like that, but pristine matchup at home. He's, if not the best pitcher, one of the top 3 pitchers on this slate. So I think he's clearly like the top overall option. Again, I don't think you have to sell your soul to fit him, but I don't think you're going to need to do that anyways. So I'm playing 4 lineups tonight. I'm going to have Gray in probably 2 or 3. Just, he looks like the best option and it's not hard to get him. How about you?
So he was sort of the decision point there tonight and it's more about how many lineups do you really want to have him in? because the salary is up there. And as you mentioned, it's completely doable. But when we start looking at him across the board, now I took this snapshot not too long ago. He's 10,100 on DK, 11,500 on FanDuel. That's one of the higher pitching prices that we've seen so far this year. And then he's 53 over there on Yahoo. So when you look at that, you're like, oh my God, this is so expensive. But he's only getting, as a chalky pitcher, he's only coming in on around of 1/3 of the lineups on DK, and significantly less on FanDuel. He's only coming in on, let's see, the update has him at about 12%. He was about 15% earlier this morning. And it just goes to show that the chalky popular pitcher, nothing like what we're seeing with the NBA playoffs. And just wait till we get down to the conference championships and, of course, the NBA finals. And we're pretty much in the land of 2-game slates now for NBA. Chance we might get a 3-game slate here, an outside chance here. We could get one more, but it's the dichotomy of the difference between, or the disparity between what is chalk. So here you can totally go with Sonny Gray. You've got another pitcher spot on DK and Yahoo to differentiate, plus then all your hitters. So it's not as big of a deal. But we like to talk about leverage, maybe direct leverage against a pitcher. And it's hard to see that for Sonny Gray today. Now, he's not a full-blown ace. He's playing like one, or he's performing like one this year. He's 34 years old. This is his 14th year in the league, and he has a 1.16 ERA, a 0.94 WHIP, and 12.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. Those are all off the charts. The WHIP is semi-sustainable. He has a career WHIP of 1.2. That just means 1.2 batters per inning pitched, or pardon me, 1.2 base runners, either via walk or hit. Per inning pitched. He's got about a 9 career ERA. So it's around a strikeout per inning, but that's 25%. That could slide down. And he is just, he's, I don't want to say lucked out, but he has been, had some fortuitous matchups. Guess what? He's got another one today. We've said bad things about the White Sox. They sort of shoved it in our face. They did 3-game sweep in their last series. Guess what? They got swept in this one, in the most recent one. So, they are only averaging 2.87 runs per game, lowest in the league. Their last series, the 3-game one they just finished, they were averaging 4 runs. And then the game before that, they knocked around Tampa Bay. And they basically have put together almost 30% of their runs in their last 6 games. So there is no help on the horizon. They have a lot of dinged up people. And it turns out that Tommy Pham, in fact, wasn't the magic idol that was going to keep them winning for the rest of the season. It worked for 3 games, Matt. Didn't work for the last 3. So I think it's a good matchup here for Sonny Gray. But kind of circling back to close this one out, is there any way you'd want to attack him? Now, normally we'd say no to a Kershaw, a Scherzer, etc. This is a Sonny Gray. He's going to be on about 1 in 3 matchups. Is there a leverage spot here?
No, I'm with you. I don't think Sonny Gray is any of those guys you just mentioned. He's a rock solid number 2 starter, a high end number 2 when he's at his best. When he's at his best, you could make the case that he's a low end number 1. But for me, it's the matchup here. Mm-hmm. So, like, yeah, you have leverage against him, but the White Sox, even if Sonny Gray's not great, I struggle to see the White Sox being the team you need, just because of how prevalent and how much you need home runs and stolen bases. So that's going to be a big no for me, dog. But I think the leverage comes in just not playing Sonny Gray. And on FanDuel, because you brought it up, he's even more expensive. He's 11.5. But you're seeing a ton of ownership go to Tanner Bibee because he's like the 5th highest priced pitcher on the slate, and he's against the Angels at home. So any other pitcher besides Bibee, I think, is going to be decently contrarian. And it's just harder to get to him on FanDuel. I still think he's the best option, though, if you can make it work.
Okay, let's move on to Tanner Bibee, since he is someone that I think is probably the SP2 today. I did write him up utilizing Odd Shopper. I did find that he, at that time, had a good under on his 6.5 strikeout prop that was available at -115 on PointsBet. So it's a -133 true odds, which you can see over there on Odd Shopper, and we'll give you a little more details on that later. But it's a 6.5 strikeout prop, so that means he's got to get the 7. 7 is a lofty number. Now he's gotten, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think he has something along the lines of 17 strikeouts in his last 2 starts. But if we look back to his rookie year and this year, he only has 8 games where he has thrown more than 7 strikeouts, and he has another 4 where he's been at 6 strikeouts. So he's going to be semi around that number, but he has a ton of games like the three of his 4 games this year where he didn't get there. He had 4 or fewer strikeouts. So he either has it or he doesn't. That gives him just over a strikeout per inning for his career. No Mike Trout. We have a little more strikeouts here in the Angels lineup. I just think it's a little harder to get to 7. So I liked that number over there. That's a sort of a way to hedge out a little bit of what we're going to do with DFS. But DFS, it's full steam ahead, right? Because all we care is about is the counting points. Go, 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 baby. Get us those strikeouts, right? How do you feel about the pseudo ace of your Cleveland Guardians?
I like him a lot here. Full disclosure, I don't think I'm going to play him personally because I'm getting up to Gray and then I'm spending down elsewhere. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Just realized the last time we talked to Slate, it was Ryan Weathers, and it's deja vu for me again, but we'll get there. As far as Bibee himself goes, he looks really good. The Angels lineup is less than exciting. They have strikeouts in there. He's affordable coming off his best start of the season against the Braves. He is one of these guys, though, and you see these pitchers, like, I'm not going to say he's like Blake Snell because he's certainly not to that degree, but I almost feel like the matchup doesn't really matter with him. If he's on, he's going to have a really good game. And if he's not, he could get hit by anyone, as evidenced by the White Sox getting to him earlier in the season when they couldn't hit anyone. And then he just dominated the Braves. So if you get the good Bibee here, he could be the top scoring pitcher on the slate, but I don't think he's like as safe as people think he is here. And again, I really like him. He just doesn't really stand out to me in the group of Tanner Houck, Blanco. I like Kirby much more as a pitcher than Bibee, or not much more, but significantly more. Brutal spot for Kirby, but he's cheaper than Bibee. I probably won't play either, but if I was playing one, I think I would play Kirby over Bibee. And I completely understand that Bibee's in a great spot at home. On paper, he looks really, really good here. I just don't think I like it as much as the field. And he's going to be the highest pitcher owned, especially in higher dollar stuff. I actually don't want to stack the Angels, but I like one-offs of the Angels more than the White Sox, specifically Willie Calhoun, our old boy Willie Calhoun, hitting cleanup tonight for the Angels. Again, he's been around the league, basically on every team at this point, but you don't often find cleanup hitters on the road at the flat 2K. So yeah, that's where I stand.
You do if you're playing for the Angels. No Anthony Rendon, Miguel Sano. Not that he was really deserving of being the cleanup hitter. He was out of the league last year. He's hurt now. Obviously, Trout is hurt. No Shohei Ohtani. So it is just it's a rough lineup here. A little bit of pop there with Logan O'Hoppe, the catcher, with Joe Adell. Who this fingers crossed, this could be the time he sticks with the big club here. So he's got to be running out of options at some point. But it's not an overly daunting lineup. And then they also offer up 25. It's their projected lineup now is 26.5 since this is their official lineup. 26.5 strikeouts, strikeout rate against righties since the start of last season. It's kind of a haves and have-nots. The top of the lineup does a pretty good job of limiting strikeouts, but you get to Adele, Ed Durinza, Mickey Moniak. Those guys are all 1 in 3, 35% plus strikeout rate. Those can really add up there, and that's sort of the downside of my wager in going there with Bibee. I need those first few hitters to kind of help him burn through some pitch counts before he gets to the other guys. But he's a decent spot. I agree with you. It's harder to leverage against him. This is one of those spots where it's like, great. It's not the worst lineup in the world. The Angels aren't. Even losing all those players, I would still take this lineup over the White Sox, potentially a couple other teams. But it's close, and they're no longer above average. They're not in the dregs, but they're not above average anymore. And that's just with the loss of Mike Trout. As we continue looking at some of our other options here, How are you feeling? Perhaps for you, it's a Marcus Stroman. You mentioned George Kirby. Is there any love for Dylan Cease against the World Series runner-up Arizona Diamondbacks here? I believe the roof is open. Let me go double check that for Chase Field. Who, as we continue down the list, who do you like before we get to some of those bargain cheapies? Because I know you're going to have thoughts on some.
I think that you can definitely get to Cease always because he's uber talented. He's expensive and not in a great spot, but he's also coming in under owned. So I think he just is a spend up to be contrarian type play in tournaments. Never mind it. Don't love it. I think the guy that stands out that we haven't talked about yet is Tanner Houck. He's just too cheap. Minnesota strikes out a ton. He's been really, really good. Again, I don't think it's the safest play in the world, and I'm not saying he's going to be elite rest of the season going forward, but for how he's pitched so far in this spot, he's too cheap. The ownership is there, but it should be there. I like him quite a bit at 8,100. And then Ronel Blanco is the other guy that I probably should be higher on myself. I'm not. The tools like him a lot. 4th overall in the top pitcher tool. Ownership is right in line with his 15% top pitcher percentage. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying him. I think the other shoe is going to drop and drop hard, but he's another guy that's been phenomenal and he's really cheap for this matchup. I prefer Houck over Blanco, but I think they're similar and I wouldn't fault anyone for feeling differently about that in terms of wanting Blanco over Houck or playing them together. Yeah, as I stated at the beginning, pretty deep pitching slate with a lot of options at every pricing tier.
All right, well, let's go down a little dumpster diving, if you will. I will leave your guy for you. I want to mention, and I'm not alone in this assessment today, right? This is all about the matchup here. So my run is going to be here with JP Sears. I noticed that we also had him written up. We've got a few free articles over there on the Stokastic homepage. If you go to the MLB page, you get mine, spotlight hitters and top stacks. Every day I'll give you a pitcher and stack for each slate. You get Matt's contrarian articles most of the days. We do a discount dandies article, and I saw JP Sears ended up as the featured guy in that one. I also put him in as the wild card tonight, and then I promoted him to the secondary pitching target because I felt he's not quite a wild card. He is so cheap on DraftKings at 6,100. I think in the cash games you can pair him with Sonny Gray if you are not going with the Sonny Gray and Bibee combination. FanDuel, he's 7,900. It's an okay price, but it's a little tougher for him to get that quality, or the confidence in him of getting a quality start is a little tougher, but he's good on the late slate there. And then Yahoo, I think he's okay as a secondary pitcher at 36. So the main issue, or not issues, the main hitters are for Miami are Luis Arias and Jazz Chisholm. Now, the challenge is they're both lefties, and unlike some of the other elite hitters in the league, they're not good left-on-left hitters. They drop down to about replacement level, and several other people in the lineup around them are below average. The only terrifying hitters at this point are going to be Dane Myers, who's essentially the 5th outfielder, but he should be towards the back of the lineup. You're going to get their catcher. He's adequate at best. That's Nick Fortes. He'll probably be batting 8th, if not 9th. And then you do have switch hitter Josh Bell, who is excellent against lefties and pretty good against righties. So he is the one terrifying guy. The only thing we worry about Sears is he hasn't really proven himself for a lot of games, and he is coming off the worst game of the season. He had 4 good starts in April, and then the last start, the Orioles got him for 3 home runs, I think 6 or 7 total runs. He did have 8 strikeouts. He did go 6 and a third innings, issued just 1 walk, but it's a reminder that he kind of is a tightrope type pitcher. The matchup against the Marlins is what's pushing it over the edge for me. So you're seeing him kind of get some traction at different places throughout the industry. Your counter move, or do you have anything you dislike about Sears? And then present the counter move, because I think it's a solid.
Yeah, I dislike that he's not very good and he's getting ownership, but I'm also playing Sears. First off, I wouldn't personally play Sears in cash games. I don't play cash games. I just think that's way too risky when you've got guys like Bibee and Tanner Houck that are also going to be popular. I don't think Sears gets ownership in cash games would be my biggest, worry there. But again, I don't play cash games, so I'll leave you there. As far as tournaments goes, Sears is too cheap. Really good matchup at home against Miami, no doubt about it. I completely understand why he stands out as like the top cheap guy to go to. I'm playing some Sears. I'm also playing some Weathers. I don't love it because he's not very good, but he'd been decent this year. I know that last start, he was pretty shitty on Sunday against Washington. I watched a lot of that game. Don't ask me why, but I did. The first inning, he was really, really good. And then the Marlins scored like 7 in that bottom of the first, and he was sitting for like 40 minutes. And you could just see he was off after that. Again, always good if your team scores 7 runs, but certainly could take you out of your rhythm. Looked like that affected him there. Again, was no guarantee he was going to be good going forward anyways, but I think there are still some buying signs with him. He's dirt cheap at 6K, in the same ballpark as Sears. Similar type matchup. I think Oakland's offense is better than Miami's right now, but not significantly. And Oakland's also getting ownership. So I like Weathers on the other side of this. I said I was playing some Gray, some Sears, and some Weathers. I think if I were playing just one lineup tonight, I might pair Weathers and Sears together and just load up on bats. I don't think that's like the optimal on paper right now, but I'm trying to win tournaments.
Yeah, and that's totally fair from that standpoint. And then one thing I do want to say, I do play the DK cash games. I tend to play mostly the single entry, the 2, the 5, the 10, and the $25 one if I'm feeling frisky. And if I have time, it'll be a little easier once NBA is over. And NHL playoffs are over, but I have been dabbling in the $5 one most days. So what I do in that is I create a slightly more unique lineup. I go with what I call my main lineup. So more often than not, it's going to be the most popular pitcher will be one of them. I will look for a cheap guy, and then just by default, I will end up with 2 or 3 of the more expensive hitters against a bad pitcher. I'm not looking to stack against them, but a lot of times it does work out that way. So I look to find differentiation in these because now it's not as bad, but we get another month into the season, and the trains that end up in these cash games are just silly when you consider baseball is so bleep invariant that I have embraced that, gone slight. And when I say slightly, I'm happy if I'm a 2v2 or a 3v3 against most of these major trains. That's enough to get your differentiation. And if you have confidence in your playing ability, your style of play, it can still be a very winning strategy. And a lot of times one of those 2 or 3 trains ends up across the line, and you don't even really get your money back if you per se. I mean, you do, but it's such a low payout, it's not worthwhile. But that's sort of how I look at it. Do you think we should switch over to the crappy pitchers here at this point?
I mean, I just talked about Ryan Weathers, so I think I'm already in that mode.
We think we're there. Well, it's if I told you had to pick 6, what would you think? You'd probably think about DraftKings because they have a new contest there. It's the new Pick6 contest. It's the new format. If you are new, if you have not played the Pick6 over there on DraftKings, you can get up to $200 in Pick6 credits if your first ever Pick6 game set does not win. So that first day, essentially what they're saying is that first contest, you can put up to $200 in it. And if you don't win, they'll essentially make you neutral up to that $200. So it's your sort of try us out, give us a chance, and then enjoy. So key things you want to know there. This is sort of the new thing that we are starting to see. It's the next evolution of sports wagering combined with DFS. So they'll put out a set number of picks. They'll add to their contest throughout the day, but they cut it off at lock time. They don't add any more after that, but they'll wait and see if there's an injured NBA player, if there's weather in a baseball game. They may not add players till they get a little more confirmation, or they may not add the backups until they get a little more confirmation. Once they put a player in, their prop stays static. And then you can change. You have late swap up until the player's game's locked. So it's a whole strategy here to figure out what is the field going to do? What are you going to do? And a lot of these are kind of, 53, 56% coin flip type bets. And just by going on the other, you're getting a much better leverage payout than you would peeing into the wind going against a sports book, right? You're going against other bettors here. So that is the quick explanation of it. Eric Lindquist does some content for it, and he lives in the Pick6 streets over there. And he oftentimes on his shows, if you ask nicely, will throw out a few of his strategies. But one of his key strategies is playing a lot of the later picks later in the night, especially during regular season NBA when we didn't have all the news. And depending on what the picks were, he was able to pivot and maneuver to things that suddenly became quite favorable, or find leverage against in spots where he thought people were wrong. If X was going to happen and he didn't totally believe the outcome of the chalk, aka whatever it was going to bust, he could take the other side, just get massive leverage on it, and that boosts your payout. So anyway, that's Pick6. But the key thing you need to know, you get a $200 give back, if you will, once you have made your first Pick6 entry. So be wise, be smart about that. All right, Matt, let's go over to the bad pitchers, if you will. I would like to talk about, I'm going to start in the middle here. I'm going to throw you off here a little bit. Michael Lorenzen. So I really like Kansas City here. I'm not a fan of Michael Lorenzen. I think he's great story. I mean, heck, he was playing actual outfield for the Cincinnati Reds for a 2 or 3 year period where he would get at bats or even go in as a defensive replacement for their lineup. That doesn't matter anymore. The last 4 years, he's played for 5 different franchises, so he's kind of bouncing around. But the highlight of his career was way back in 2019. He was the first pitcher since Babe Ruth to be the winning pitcher, hit a home run, and play in the field, all in the same game. Of course, Shohei Ohtani comes along and makes that a regular occurrence, kind of making Lorenzen out of there. But he was the first person in 98 years to do that since Babe Ruth, and then Shohei Ohtani came along. Key thing that we like when targeting Lorenzen, a lot of hard contact, 45% to each side of the plate. The Kansas City lineup has close to a 190 isolated power against right-handed pitchers since the beginning of last season, the projected lineup for tonight. They've got power up and down their lineup. And the other thing about Lorenzen, he doesn't really strike the opposing hitters out, just 7.5 per 9 for his career. So this to me lines up making Kansas City a pretty good stack. I'm curious to see, let me flip over here to the top stack stool. I want to see how many other people landed there, but this would be a good example of go with Sonny Gray, pick a Kansas City stack, and then you can go chalky again elsewhere, and gamers are not really going to be on there. So it looks like Kansas City right now is going to be about the 7th most popular stack. So that's a pretty good deal here. How do you feel about Lorenzen? Do you like anybody from KC, and who is your ideal stack?
I don't like Lorenzen really. I don't think he's a bad pitcher, but on a slate like this, no thanks. He's giving up the highest expected WOBA against righties of any pitcher on the slate. So you might be onto something here. They don't really stand out to me compared to like other teams like Boston, the Yankees, Cardinals, the Mariners. I think they're just jammed with those teams, but wouldn't surprise me at all if they're the team you need. We know they've got power. They can run. They've got a couple elite guys in their lineup, or at least one in Bobby Witt. And the rest of it has kind of been filling out. Michael Massey back. He's been good. So, yeah, I don't hate the Royals. Definitely on the Royals side over Lorenzen. Just other stacks I like slightly more.
Yep, and it looks like they don't have Velasquez in. I was hoping he would be in. It's
he stinks.
Kyle Isabel. Yeah, well, he's got power. He's
like 4 for his last 30.
Power. Well, the Pasquatch is there. Salvador Perez is there. Michael Massey slides up the lineup. There's a decent second baseman. So one other thing I want to add on this, there's 18 teams in the player pool today. So this is one of those slates where there's not an obvious spot. There's not a Coors Field. There's not a high humidity wind blowing out, insert Midwest city here, or the Eastern seaboard here. So when you look at something like good weather in for this game, you've hitting weather, you can get over over the field pretty significantly by going to just 15% of this team. This is the perfect team on these big Friday slates that allow you to pick 5 or 6 teams where you're going above the field and perhaps having that chance to catch lightning in a bottle rather than pushing the chips in on a Coors Field stack or something like that. So that was the other part I should have added there as well. But I like Kansas City tonight. I like it. I stand by that. So you're going to talk about the Mariners? Am I sensing this? You're gonna go against Blanco, the man with the no-hitter?
Well, I'd say this. They weren't the first team I was going to go to, but if they were, I wouldn't be alone considering they're projected to be the highest owned stack on the slate. So yeah, the Mariners wildly in play here. Again, Blanco has been really good. The underlying numbers definitely call for some regression. And we know the Mariners have a ton of upside up and down their lineup. He's been, again, very, very good. But again, the expected numbers call for some regression. So while they don't say he's going to be bad, this lineup is affordable. They've got power. They run. Like, they're not my favorite stack because of the ownership they're garnering. But I also think it's one of those slates where you don't really have to worry about ownership. So I don't think you don't play the Mariners because they're high owned, because they're not high owned. They're just relatively the highest owned on the slate. That said, I'm a little bit surprised that they're coming in as the highest owned team on the slate. My favorite stack on the board is pretty clearly Atlanta. They had been struggling massively. Again, faced a bunch of good pitchers in that Seattle series. Got going a little bit in that last game. Gavin Stone pitching way above his head. I think the lefties look really good here. Certainly, guys like Acuna, Riley, Ozuna always look good. Olsen has 3 walks over his past couple games. I think he's about to get going. So the Braves are definitely my favorite stack on the board, but they're also a lot harder to get to. So I understand why the Mariners are coming in with ownership, and it's just jumbled all over. The Padres are getting love. The Cardinals are getting love. Oakland's getting some love. Cleveland. So it's a pick your poison type of slate where a lot of these offenses look similarly good and similarly bad.
You hit on a couple of them for me. One of them is the Braves. So no, I try not to write them up most days just because they're phenomenal in all cases, but I needed a late slate stack and they doubled as a nice main slate stack as well. So today you got a little bit of discussion here from me, very little, but for the Braves, the main thing is going against Gavin Stone. While he has allowed just 1 home run in his career, he has a 16.5% strikeout rate. He has been pretty lucky. My notes are just basically it's only a matter of time before a team tees off against the 25-year-old. So why not the all-star laden Atlanta lineup? If it wasn't for various off-field issues that had a couple of pitchers no longer coming back to the Dodgers, they've got Buehler, Kershaw hurt. He would not be in the mix. And I don't think I wrote it down, but I want to say he was like 25th prospect for the Dodgers or something like that. So he'd be a guy that you would expect to come up on a good team as a reliever, as maybe a multi-inning guy, potentially a 5th man or a swing starter if they needed it. He should not be in the starting lineup. So hopefully, and we always say hopefully people are a little less impressed by that 4.8 run total there, because there's a few 5s on the board, Matt. Maybe the Braves don't get picked up as much by the optimizers. They probably are going to be by the Sims because they'll notice that leverage there. But we'll see what happens here with the Braves. Who do you have after the Braves?
I do like the Mariners. I specifically like Julio looks great. Josh Rojas leading off Polanco. I like the top of the Mariners lineup for sure. I think the Braves are pretty clearly the top stack for me, though, especially considering the lack of ownership they're getting. They're a team I'm going to prioritize pretty heavily tonight, sacrificing wherever else I need to in hopes that they just have one of those typical Braves games, which they've done plenty of times, especially in Dodger Stadium. Other than that, I also like Boston. Paddock is getting some ownership. He's not good. Boston has a pretty good lineup. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. And you got some direct leverage there. So Boston would be one of the other teams that I'd be overweight on if I were multi-entering.
Yep. So with the one thing we should call out, Atlanta and the Dodgers, both of them very expensive, as they should be. But this is where you get into the, the JP Sears, the Falters, some of these other players. You don't go with Sonny Gray. You end up with Bibee and perhaps another pitcher like Kirby or something else. That's what you're going to take on DK to get those guys in your lineup from both those teams in the late game. We're still waiting on the Atlanta and Dodgers lineups, as well as the Miami and the Oakland Athletics lineups, but we do have all of the others. We should be getting those here shortly. You will have them before lock. We are going to be signing off here in a bit, because we have the NBA Live Before Lock show coming up after us here. You will get coverage breaking down up until tip-off the 2 games that are going off tonight. Tomorrow, there is just one NBA game. We will have NBA Live Before Lock for that. We'll also have MLB coverage for you tomorrow. So that will be a lot of fun. And then, of course, we round things back on Sunday with more than just 2 NBA games. I think I gotta go look at the schedule here. I can't remember. No, that's not Sunday. So Sunday could have no games depending on what happens tonight. So that's when the game 7s go off. Tomorrow is the opening of the series for Minnesota and Denver. That is going to be a 7:00 game. So that should be a lot of fun. And then we'll probably see Monday and Tuesday the start of the other series there as well. So it's fun. We're going to be into the second round most likely after tonight, and we'll get new matchups, which is always fun to look at and to break down. Let's see. I've got one other team you haven't mentioned. I will mention them. We've got the St. Louis Cardinals here. Apparently I'm rooting for the Midwest between Kansas City and the St. Louis Cardinals. A little, what is it, an I-80 series out there? I don't remember, I-70, whatever it is. So we've got Brad Keller on the mound tonight, and he is someone that some would say probably shouldn't be in the league anymore, which is sad. His biggest calling card while he was with the Kansas City Royals was he did not allow a lot of power. However, the league more or less figured him out last year, and he ended up having almost 1 walk per inning or something obscene like that. Sort of washed out. He did get a minor league contract coming out of spring training with Chicago. He has thrown 3 games in AAA Charlotte. He did get up to about 95 pitches in his final one, 91 in his final one. So he is stretched out. They're going to need him to absorb innings, because the Chicago White Sox bullpen has pitched the 10th most innings in the league this year. They while they were off yesterday, they logged 89 pitches on Tuesday, 91 on Wednesday. They have the worst bullpen in the league when it comes from runs allowed. They are not good with the walks. They have a horrible walk rate and the 4th highest home run rate. So we're getting good, or we're getting garbage, or we're getting hot garbage with the Cardinals here. So I like their usual suspects. Now, a lot of them are slumping, but these guys are going to turn it around between Goldie, Arenado, Nootbaar, Donovan, Gorman, Contreras. I have them as kind of my one of my top 3 stacks tonight. So that is me picking against Keller. Again, the hard part with Keller is he doesn't allow a ton of home runs, but he allows a crap ton of hard contact, and he has walk issues that I don't think are corrected. So that helps with the stacks. We need some doubles. We need a home run or 2, but those can come, or they can come off the bullpen, depending on how quickly they get them out. So if this team had a good bullpen, I wouldn't be going to Keller, but Keller probably also wouldn't be pitching for a team with a good bullpen. But there we are. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think St. Louis looks good because Keller's not great and the White Sox bullpen stinks. Ownership is there, though. This Cardinals offense is less than inspiring. They lack power. They lack speed. They're old. Yeah, there are going to be some slates this year where they win, but probably not the slates I win, because I'm almost overplaying this team. Again, I'm not saying that I'll never play them, because certainly there are slates that will call for it, but it's not tonight's for me. They're owned as they should be, if not over-owned. I'd rather get to basically any of the teams around them.
All right. What else? What else do we have here, Matt? We got time to walk through a couple more teams here. Do you think Slade Sassoni is any good? Do you want to go against Chris Paddock? Can he pull another rabbit out of his hat? What else do we have for the last couple teams we haven't mentioned in some form or fashion? We didn't really talk about Marcus Stroman. We haven't really talked about the Yankees bats. They get Reese Olson in the first game tonight. Anything from the Bronx?
Yeah, so as far as Boston goes, I've mentioned them a couple times. I think they look good. Paddock is getting ownership, and he's not good. So Boston, yeah, I'm totally cool with it. A lot of these teams after Atlanta and San Diego are really jumbled together. Outside of those two teams, Atlanta, San Diego, and the White Sox and Angels at the bottom, every other team has between a 3 and 7% chance of being the top stack. So whether it's Seattle, Oakland, Boston, Houston, Kansas City, I think all these teams look really, really similar. That's just why I like Atlanta by far the most, because they're getting ownership with these other teams, but they're clearly the top stack on the board. It's moved up in the last update. They now have an 11% chance of being that top stack. San Diego's right behind them at 10%. But I do also like Boston for the direct leverage. We'll see if it holds, but if Paddock comes in with ownership, even better. And then, yeah, I guess the only other direct leverage spot that I'm not playing, but I could see is Miami. Like Sears is okay, but that's about it at this point. And Miami is not good either, but doesn't mean that if Sears is off tonight, Miami couldn't hit him. It's not like the ballpark shift is that bad going from Miami to Oakland. Very similar, actually. So I think as far as leverage goes, it's Boston. And then as much as I hate it, Miami, because Sears just isn't as good of a pitcher as the other guys that are getting ownership. He's just getting ownership because of his price tag. So I'm playing Sears, but if Miami stack takes him out, it is what it is. I'm not going to be uber shocked.
Alrighty, well let's look here at the lineup generator, because that is one of the nice offerings we have here at Stochastic. We got about 10 minutes. We'll kind of quickly go through these. So key things, Jordan, if you want to do, I didn't see which one you were doing, so let's just do DK first, since we do have two pitchers. But key things to call out for is you can choose your stack type. On DraftKings, you can go 5-3, 5-0, and 4-4. On FanDuel, you can go 4-4, 4-3-1, or 4-2-2, or you can select all stack types. We can hit all stack types there. Then you get to the next page. You can decide what type of lineup build you want to get. Do you want chalky? Do you want balanced? Do you want contrarian? Again, this is far different than those same words when we use them in NFL DFS, and especially NBA and NBA playoff DFS. But even if we pick chalky lineups, you'll see that they won't be the most chalky lineups of the night. You also have the option to select lock in a pitcher. You can also lock in a hitter, or you can skip that. You build out up to 20 lineups in your holding pen. If you see one that pops up that you like, you can hit save. If you don't like it, you can go ahead and hit discard. We can click up and get to 20 of those, and then we'll go over and look at the portfolio section. I know Jordan's got the quick fingers there, so he is probably already ahead of me for that situation. But once you get onto that saved lineups page, to the right side, you will see your player exposures. You can also click and see what your stack exposures are. On the left side, you're going to see all of the different lineups. If you wanted to highlight a lineup that had, say, Sonny Gray on it, you would click his name, and it's going to highlight all those lineups and bring them up to the top of that page there on the left. If we expand out one of the lineups, you can see who is in the lineup. If you wanted to replace any of the players, or if you just said, you know what, I don't like that lineup at all, you can hit discard if you want to get rid of it. Or you can say, you know what, I knew I wanted Sonny Gray, but we're going to take him out of the lineup. You can click the choose player swap, and then you just got to pick somebody else that fits into the lineup with the salary that's remaining. In this case, we could just for fun go down to Dylan Cease or someone of that nature, and you can see where you are. That allows you, it's a little more direct. It's not quite the late swapping or the global swapping, but it does allow you to keep all these lineups together in the holding pen. You can build out, or you can run up to, depending on which subscription you have, you can build out up to 5,000 lineups. You can, download them 20 at a time. So for those of you that want to play 100 lineups, you just have to just download them and then put them in your CSV for the site of your choice and upload them in that fashion. But it's a good way to look at things. What this does is it's built off of all the stochastic tools. It's using the everything that the same engines that run the simulation tool, those are working here, right? So the boom bust, the leverage consideration, the player projections, the player popularity projections, what is the field doing, the array of outcomes. It's simming all of these lineups. It'll capture about 10 or 12,000 total lineups there. So even if you are, if Matt and I were sitting here and we were trying to make the exact same lineup, even if we did all the same settings and locked in a pitcher and locked in the same hitter, very unlikely that we would even dupe each other. That is the one beauty of baseball. We probably could do it after a few hundred lineups in football, but at football you don't get to lock in as many options here. So it's a way to keep things fresh and not allow to create a lot of duplication there. But it's cutting off all those crappy lineups that end up at the bottom. It's only giving plus expected value lineups here. Now the players still need to do their part and do their thing for you on the field, but this takes care of some of the crappier lineups. So we can go run that one more time here. Let's look at some. We can do FanDuel this time. So I'm going to click on just 4-4, Jordan, and then we're going to say chalky lineups, and I'm going to lock in Sonny Gray, and we're going to see what happens here. So I'm building out my lineups. I'm seeing quite a few Seattle stacks here. This feels like Matt Belman is behind the scenes here. Somehow they have captured the essence of Matt, and he is inside the lineup generator right now.
I am definitely not.
Creating all this stuff. So we have a bunch of lineups there that we can sort through and then do the same thing. You can kind of decide what you like, what you don't like, but you can see it's coming in as some of the more chalky lineups. But as we look, and Jordan can expand on a couple of the lineups, as you scroll down, you'll find players that are only 10% owned. Some of the lineups, if they put in a Luke Raley or Jurickson Profar, something like that, they're going to be in the 8 or 7% range for those players. So that is allowing you to get a fair amount of differentiation there from the field. And that's what's helping create the leverage, creating that expected positive ROI, which means when these win, you win well, right? You win, I don't want to say big, but you win sizable. You need to play these with the eye on a longer time horizon, similar to when we talk about the market-based betting expectations there on OddsShopper. This is ROI is kind of a similar thing across those things. Matt, I wish when we were in school they had DFS as a class. I would have been so good at math back then. I'm a marginal math student, which is hilarious because I was a CPA and in accounting and finance. Now I'm in compensation, dealing nothing but numbers here. But that's like algebra type math. Maybe a little hint towards calculus when we're doing regression analysis. But oh man, if I would have had my finance classes using instead of implied interest rate and this, that, and the other, if we were talking DFS and leverage, shoot, I would have been in class every single day. Would have been awesome. Alas, it is not. We got a couple minutes left. I think it's time to talk home runs. We'll circle back through the top stacks, top pitchers one last time. But who do you have? Who's your spendy home run option tonight?
Matt Olson's getting off the schneid. He's homering.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot, actually. I am going to go with, and I can't believe I'm doing this. This will be my middle pick. I'll go with the less idiotic pick later. But Jock Peterson going against Dylan Cease. I like the way that it lines up. I'm having to downgrade him to not my Bucks Deluxe play because I wouldn't bet on him in the home run wagering market because Cease is a good enough pitcher. But this is a spot where I think things line up solidly for him. My spendy obvious guy, I think I'm gonna have to go with Julio Rodriguez. Go Mariners. Go Mariners. Who's your?
How about your cheapie? Oh, okay. Are we gonna do 3 each?
Yeah, we'll do 3. I gotta look for my cheapie. So you got yours here.
All right. So my middle of the road guy is gonna be from that same Mariners stack. Give me Jorge Polanco.
Okay. All right. I will see that Jorge Polanco, and I believe that Mr. Massey for Kansas City is relatively cheap. Is that allowable? Let's see where his salary is. He's 2,800. I think that's cheap. I think that's really cheap. So I will go with Michael Massey against Michael Lorenzen. Battle of the Michaels here. He's batting fifth tonight. I've mentioned why I'm not really a fan of Lorenzen. Again, Lorenzen does okay on the power front, but it's the hard hits, it's the lack of strikeouts, and it's the abundance of contact that's being made on him for the last few years that I'm okay to see Michael Massey poke one over the fence there.
Sweet.
All righty, and hit your pitchers. Obviously, Sonny Gray.
Yeah, it's going to be Sonny Gray, and just in terms of who I think the best pitchers are and stuff, Sonny Gray, Tanner Houck, and then Bibee.
Okay. I concur. I would land that way. I would throw in JP Losman. You will counter with Falter, and then top stacks for me. We both kind
JP Losman. You are going way back.
And I had a whole joke set up for Sears and catalog, and then I decided no one was going to get that because it would be not obvious enough, and I didn't know if Malakar was going to be watching. So I put that away, and now I got to go with JP Losman. It's like I threw 5 interceptions in 1 quarter there, Matt.
Hey, you went to my alma mater, so I like it.
Oh my God, the University of Suckitude? Is that what you went?
Also there, but he is a proud Tulane grad.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Right. I didn't know. I should have known you went to Tulane because you talked about being down by New Orleans. So who was your cheapie home run? Chat was asking.
Oh yeah, my cheapie home run. Since I went all the way up with Olsen, give me Willie Calhoun cleaning up for the Angels at 2K. Bibee isn't impervious to getting hit, so give me a little Willie Calhoun action.
All right. And then rounding out the stacks, I like the old and decrepit because they remind me of me, St. Louis Cardinals. And I'm good with Kansas City in addition to the Braves. Yours in addition to the Braves?
Atlanta, number 1 for me by a country mile. Then Seattle. Then Boston.
All right. Okay. 5.5 teams. What was the over under for franchises that Willie Calhoun has played for? 5.5. You going under or over?
He's not that old, but he's been on a bunch of teams. I think he's been on Cleveland actually. Over. Texas, he's over.
Okay. This is going to blow your mind. Texas, San Francisco, New York, and tonight will be with the Angels.
Wow, that does blow my mind. He was on Texas for quite a minute, so he's still young too.
Oh, he is. He's 29 this year. He was with Texas for 7 years. So I thought it'd be 5 or 6 because I was going to set the question up of who, and I knew the answer would be Bobby Witt, but who had played for more teams, Bobby Witt Sr. or Willie Calhoun? Bobby Witt Sr. has played for like 8 teams. Or 19.
Yeah, he was just
he spent most of his time with Texas as well, but then he had a couple good years out of the bullpen there. I think it was out of the bullpen if I remember correctly with Oakland, and then he bounced around for a bunch of 1-year stints here and there. But yeah, I thought for sure Calhoun was going to be the crusty old veteran. Maybe we're confusing him with Cole Calhoun, perhaps, or you are, much like I thought JP Sears and JP Losman were.
I wasn't, but I could see why someone would think that.
All right. We're going to get on out of here. You guys are going to get NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. It is going to be with Josh Engelman and with Eric Lindquist. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Fantasy Tips Matt. I am at EMac DFS. We say thank you to producer Jordan Klein. You can follow Stochastic over there at Stochastic_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.